Shalom, people. This is Brother Laws coming at you with another video. And I want to do some uh, read over some articles that I had seen about a month or so ago that I had wanted to do some teaching on. And what I want to do is I want to look at these articles and I want to see if it's anything that I can find in Scripture that can uh, be related to the event that is happening here, because I believe that the accounts in Scripture can have a application in more than one uh, situation. It can have application in more than one time period, meaning uh, let's say like the Deuteronomy 28 uh, prophecy that talks about all the things that would happen to our people because of their disobedience to Yah. I think that it doesn't just apply to this 400 years that we have been in. It applies to all people that were of the 12 tribes that were scattered and dispersed all over the world, so that you can go to South America in Brazil, you can go to Colombia, you can go to the CD people that are in Pakistan and India and look at uh, their track to where how they got to where they are, and you can as just like a blueprint, you can lay it on their lives and see that their lives go uh, uh, right in line with what Deuteronomy 28, uh, 15 through 68, which are the curses. And this is in more than one time period, because we understand that the trans-Sahara slave trade existed longer than the transatlantic slave trade by hundreds of years. And even the trans-Sahara slave trade continued after the transatlantic slave trade was outlawed. We know that slaves were still being taken out to the far east from ports in Mombasa, Kenya, and Zanzibar. I think it is Mozambique or Tanzania. I can't remember which country, whatever it was called back then. And so that and in any time period, not just back then, but even today, um, we know that the slavery of African people or people of color still exists on a large scale today. It does. The trafficking of our women into the sex trade, excuse me, the trafficking of our children into the sex trade, the trafficking in human body parts. It exists today on a massive scale. And so if we would only go with it happening that one or two times, we would be mistaken. So just like in Revelation, which is what one of the things we're going to talk about today, when you see the talk of some of the natural disasters, some of those natural disasters have occurred in the past before. If you look at the blood moons. So if we would say, oh, this is the event, we might be mistaken. But what we can say is, when you are looking in Revelations, or what, and then you look at Daniel, one of the things that should become patently clear is that uh, what's going to happen, which is the time that we're living in the time of the latter the latter days, as Daniel said, that these things will have an increasing, um, what word am I looking for? Uh, an increasing, uh, 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 and the word is gonna come to me. They will have an increasing, um, and my mind is just going blank. Basically, what I'm trying to say is these things will happen at such an accelerated pace, meaning over and over and over again, so many times that it will become almost like a commonplace thing. Meaning that maybe every, 100 years or 200 years, you might have a blood moon. But in the time of the end, these things will come at an increasing expectancy, meaning, hey, just happened a couple of years ago, and now it's happening again, and now this happening again, and now it's happening again, and now this happening again. So we will be living in a season when these things will have a multiplicity of occurrences. That's what I'm the word I'm looking. It will have a multiplicity of occurrences, meaning we are living in that season where at one meaning that he's trying to get your attention to see all these blood moons. Look in the scriptures. What is it saying about the blood? The moon would turn to blood, because obviously we know the moon has turned to blood before, in the sense of the dust in the sky making the moon appear to be hazy. But in the times that we are living in the last, let's just say, 20 years, there's been a increase of these moons appearing in the sky. There's been an increase in the eclipses happening, total eclipses. There's been an increase, so now it's not. It's like it's not a what word can you say? It doesn't phase people anymore. This what should let us know that, hey, we are in that time, because it's become commonplace. And at one time the world would wonder after. Now the world is not no big thing when these eclipses happening, because it's happening at a increasing pace. The pace of it is picking up. It's an exponential pace of the things that we see in scripture, so that maybe, and even like with the part I was talking about with the slavery, and the in the even with the other things that we're going to talk about, there's increasing pace. So one of the things we wanted to talk about tonight was, we wanted to talk about the in Revelations. We wanted to go to Revelations, and we wanted to talk about um, the great mountain turning the sea to blood, and we wanted to talk about Wormwood, the star that fell and made all the waters bitter. What I found, an article in, um, uh, here, two articles actually I found that kind of coincide with this, and also some other events that have happened to let us know that this thing is picking up, and that we are indeed living in that time. Okay, so we're gonna go to Revelations chapter 8, and we're gonna start at verse 8, and it said, Revelations 8 and 8. He said, and the second angel sounded, and as it were a great mountain burning with fire was cast into the sea, and the third part of the sea became blood, and a third part of the creatures which were in the sea and had life died, and the third part of the ships were destroyed. And the third angel sounded, and there fell a great star from heaven, burning as it were a lamp, and it fell upon the third part of the waters, and upon the fountains of water. And the name of the star is called Wormwood. And the third part of the waters became wormwood, and many men died of the waters, because they were made bitter. Okay, now uh, I found this article, uh, and I'm pretty sure this is something that you could find all across America. This came from the Detroit. This is the first article we're going to read to try to show you how we can coincide the Great Mountain burning with fire that fell into the waters and killed uh, and turned things to blood and caused many creatures to die. This is the Detroit Free Press, and it is 12/6/2019, and is an article entitled Uranium Contaminated Site Collapses into Detroit River." It's an article by uh, Kathleen Galligan. It says water levels have risen 64 through 68 inches along the Detroit River, according to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Tuesday, July 16, seen from the Windsor Structure Park, Windsor, uh, California. Um, no, Canada. Okay, because Canada's on the other side. It says here, and it says a Detroit property contaminated with uranium and other dangerous chemicals partially collapsed into the Detroit River on November 26. The Michigan Department of Energy, Great Lakes and Energy has confirmed. Located next to the historic Fort Wayne and released by Detroit Bulk Storage, site known as the Detroit Dock, allegedly collapsed under the weight of large aggregate piles that were stored at the site during Thanksgiving weekend. The property has been listed by the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection Agency as a contaminated site due to its use of uranium and other dangerous chemicals during manufacturing dating to the 1940s, according to the Windsor Star, which first reported the incident. Located at 5851 West Jefferson, the property formerly was a Revere copper and brass site. Revere Copper was subcontracted in the 1940s to build the world's first atomic bomb and continued to make uranium rods in the 1950s. Oh, the site had faced scrutiny regarding safety hazards and who would be held responsible for its cleanup. According to a 2011 evaluation study by the United States National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health of the property, at that time there was a potential for significant residual radiation. The news is especially concerning because the Detroit drinking water intake lines are nearby downriver. Due to the timing of the collapse, the spill went unnoticed to many responsible state and federal environmental regulatory agencies. U.S. Environmental Protection Agency officials were not aware of the collapse until contacted by Windsor Star on Wednesday. The Windsor Detroit Bridge Authority was also informed, as it is overseeing the construction of the new Gordie Howe International Bridge nearby. I'm going to skip on down because this is want to get to this part right here. It said Michigan Department of Energy, Great Lakes Energy said in a statement Thursday. EGLE is aware that the site was previously used to process uranium, and there is no evidence to suggest that there is a current radiological risk. Sounds like what happened in uh, uh, the just the place down near Fort Wayne, or is it not Fort Wayne, but Flint, when they told them there was no risk, right? So EGL had no reason to believe PCBs or other contaminants from the site were a hazard to the public or the environment. However, EGLE intends to continue investigating potential impacts as part of the assessment of the incident on Friday. We expect to observe the site by boat and drone flights. I'm gonna skip here. However, this is talking about Canada. Member of Canadian Parliament Brian Moose of Windsor West, which is the city on the other side of the river, which is Canada, is not convinced. Moose hand delivered a letter to the Minister of Energy and Climate Change, Honorable Jonathan Wilkinson, calling for an immediate bi-national investigation into the Revere copper site dock collapse, according to a public statement. Mass is concerned that the site is potentially currently rated high for contamination because of the residual contamination present. Okay, and media study should be conducted on the dangers presented to the Detroit waterways and Great Lakes region. Listen to this. 40 million people use the Great Lakes for drinking water, and the ecosystem is already fragile. Any potential threat should be investigated immediately on both sides of the border. Okay, so that's the end of the article. But what I wanted you to see was here again, we see that radioactivity uh, is something that even when put in water, is still hot. It's still hot. Notice what um, notice what Revelation says here. When we go back to it, it said a great Revelation 8:8 say great mountain burning with fire. Now, when it says about these radioactive rods, we know that they placed the rods into the, the water, and the rods are so hot that the water doesn't put the rods out. It just it absorbs the heat. Then the heat is turned to steam, and then the steam turns to electricity. And and keep you need to keep the rods under the water, because if you take the rods up out of the water, they'll start heating back up. Now the water, you can't get near the water. It's super hot, super hot. But if you take the rods out of the water, um, it'll be like Fukushima. Now we know that with Fukushima was never really contained. Some people believe that it actually melted its way further down, and it maybe could still be finding its way down toward the core of the earth. That's how hot those rods were. And some believe that they have actually the water that they was trying to the seawater that they was pouring on those rods to try to cool them down, and then they was taking that water and putting them in these storage pods. That actually that water was flushed into the Pacific. Now the thing that you got to understand about the Pacific anyway, and this is what I had to come to understand too, is that before Fukushima was even thought about, think about all the nuclear tests that they did in the Pacific Ocean in the 1940s and the 1950s. I think in the 1960s when they started doing underground tests, because people were complaining, Japanese and other nations were complaining about. So the radiation was kind of in the Pacific domain anyway. But now reports are coming out that because of the radiation, and that radiation that was probably already there in the Pacific, that it has affected the life of not all creatures in the Pacific, but they said it's large swaths of places that you can go to in the Pacific where there is no life because of the radiation, which is just like I said, a great burning mountain. Because one of the things that after the fuel rods are spent, right, they still have radioactive properties. I don't know how I think they said they put them in these special containers, and in America, they have a place. I forgot the name of it. It's a mountain or something where they say they take it and they bury it. But uh, with the radioactive um, water that was released into the Pacific, uh, it's affected our life. But what now they're finding out is that anywhere that there have been these nuclear sites, that some of that water that was supposed to have been stored and then taken, and then whatever they were supposed to have done with it, that some of that water in many of the places throughout the world where they have had nuclear reactors, or where they was producing the rods, that either um, some of the water got out, or some of the material, the residuals from them working with this radioactive, is either still on the site and has contaminated the land, or there's been maybe water or flooding or whatever that has put residuals in it, in the drinking water. And this is one of the cases here in Detroit where they had a site that was so toxic that nobody could probably afford to clean it up. And the EPA, instead of forcing these people to contend with this, waited till this happened. And just like you said, this great burning mountain of radioactive material has fallen into the Detroit River, which is considered to be a chocolate city, a city with a lot of black people, and that now Canada is getting involved because these lakes supply water to them. So, isn't this isn't this a what we just read in Revelations, where he said that the water was let's go back to it, where he said the water uh became blood. I mean, you can't drink blood now in some places where, like, those mines in Africa and India, where they've said that because of the chemicals that they put in the mines, when they had floods and the water got in there, that the water mixed with the chemicals and made it blood. Either way, it is undrinkable. And basically, this is talking about making the waters of the earth undrinkable in certain places. This is what's trying to show you, that eventually, with all these chemicals, with all these factories doing all this stuff, that there is gonna get to a point that the water that is on the earth in many places is going to become undrinkable. I thought it was strange, I guess, back in the early 2000s when T. Boone Pickens came out, and he was an oil man. He's passed away now, but they asked him. I remember it was an interview I was watching, and he said that he was going around the world, or at least here in America, and buying up the water rights. He said that water was going to become more precious than oil. Now, he didn't really go into detail about it, but he must have known that coming online was all this stuff with these nuclear waste, all these places with this contaminated waste. You already seen, and I got articles because I get some military magazines and everything. You've already seen these articles talking about the drinking water and the groundwater on many bases is contaminated because of the chemicals that was used in firefighting and other things. And so we are getting to that point, just like, and see, because this what you got to understand is, yes, there probably might come another a great catastrophe where something like that might happen, where maybe a volcano or something might slide off into the ocean or whatever. But this is a sometimes the way we, because of these movies and stuff that we've seen, we sometimes believe that these events are going to happen at one time when actually y'all might have a serious series of things that's going to happen that's going to bring them about. Meaning, it's not just one great mountain that's going to burn with fire that's going to be cast into the sea that's going to make a third part of the sea become blood. It's going to be a series of these things, and it might not actually be a quote unquote great gigantic mountain, but that it might be, let's say, a mountain of radioactive waste that slid into the Detroit River and contaminated the river, and they didn't bother to tell anybody about it, right? And so then you think about this article here that I'm getting ready to read right here. Um, let's see, I'll go to, and this one was really shocking to me right here. Okay, this is coming from CNN. This was back in November 30th. CNN World. It said Germany is closing all its nuclear power plants. Now I must find a place to bury the deadly waste for 1 million years. 1 million years. Did you hear that? It's closing all its nuclear power plants. Now we were always told, excuse me for a minute. Yeah, water. It was it seemed like for a long time that nuclear power was always sold to Americans by Europeans as the way to go. Like, why y'all over there, America, burning all this coal and causing global warming? And we got the answer. France, we got the answer. Open up more nuclear power plants, clean nuclear, clean nuclear, clean nuclear. Now we know that Germany is a very advanced society when it comes to technology, but something is telling them we need to get rid of these nuclear power plants. But now we gotta find a place to bury this what mountain of nuclear waste, which is gonna not lose its radioactivity for 1 million years. Here's the article. It said when it comes to the big questions plaguing the world, scientists they don't get much larger than this. Where do you bury more than 28,000 cubic meters, roughly 6 Big Ben clock towers, which is that great mountain of deadly radioactive waste for the next million years? Now, this is let you know that they read the Bible. They know this stuff is prophetic. Said this is the wicked problem. This is what they put in the article facing Germany as it closes all of its nuclear power plants in the coming years. So it's not happening all at once. It's going to happen over a period of time because the story going to go away, and then they're going to have to start secretly finding a place to dump this waste, right? So according to Professor Medusa Skiers, part of the team searching for a storage site, experts are now hunting from somewhere to bury almost 2,000 containers of high level radioactive waste. Now, what America used to do, I don't know if we still do it, if they still have the armor piercing, discarding sabos, is we were taking our depleted uranium and turning it into they called it the silver bullet. And what it was these tank rounds. Well, not just tank rounds. They used it in armor piercing rounds too, but it was depleted uranium. It was the uranium that was it because when you shoot it out at a high rate of speed, it liquefies and it can just burn its way through any armor, right, or whatever, and get inside and just incinerate the people inside. But anyway, um, let's see here. Let's get back to this. Okay, let's go. Okay, okay. Sorry about that. It story got away. Okay, here it is. It says, yeah. The experts are now hunting for somewhere to bury the 2,000 containers of high level radioactive waste. The site must be beyond rock solid, no groundwater, that's key, or earthquakes that could cause a leakage. The technological challenges of transporting the lethal waste, finding a material to encase it, and even communicating its existence to future humans are huge. But the most pressing challenge today might simply be finding a community willing to have a nuclear dumping ground in their backyard, which is not going to happen in Germany. They're not going to let it happen. They're going to try to go find a third world country to do this. And this is why I'm saying this is contributing to the prophecy of the great mountain burning with fire, with the wormwood that made the waters bitter, that made men die when they drank it, because they are in the process of doing this now. That's why they're trying to build these space stations. That's why they're trying to find a way to blast off to uh, Mars, because they realize that the contamination level on this planet is becoming almost unsustainable for any life to exist. And that's why the elite are buying up the water rights. At the same time, they're building pipelines in the Mountain West with the Keystone Pipeline. At least they're trying to, building it over aquifers, knowing that they've had spills and that they can contaminate these aquifers. Why are these people doing this stuff? Because if you have made these high level deals with Hasatan or Satan yourself, he comes to steal, kill, and destroy. So what is he doing? He split the atom. He split the atom off to. He split the atom off and produced not only nuclear bombs, but he also produced nuclear energy. Both of them deadly to the earth. Both of them deadly to the earth. That's what he comes to do, to kill, steal, and destroy. So he said here, he said Germany decided to phase out all its nuclear power plants in the wake of the Fukushima disaster in 2011 amid increasing safety concerns. See, and they understand that Fukushima. They're not saying it. America not saying it. Japan is not saying it. But why is the population of Japan declining? Why is their birth rate going down? Why are they reluctantly allowing people from other countries and asking black people from the Caribbean to come over there now? Why all of a sudden are they allowing this to happen? And then I just got Lisa Cabrera did a article a couple of weeks ago where it said in one Japanese town they don't have no more children. Now of course the thing is given that they people don't want to have children or whatever, and they're an insular society where people kind of keep to themselves. But I also believe that it's probably because of the not just the Fukushima thing, because they've had nuclear reactors all over Japan for a long time. So I believe that that was a, to me, as those reactors were being built, they probably was contamination and stuff, because they said the company that built it, which was a General Electric company, TEPCO, that design was for all the reactors that were there in Japan, that it probably was spillage and stuff going on anyway, and that on top of the nuclear tests that were being done in the Pacific Ocean, I guarantee if they would go back and do a true study, they would find that there has been a marked decline in the populations of all those coastal nations and coastal cities that were in the Pacific, where they had contact with the radioactivity that was being pumped into the Pacific Ocean through the nuclear testing, and then the food from the Pacific that, or the animals that were being contaminated with the radiation. I guarantee you that they will find a marked decline in the birth rates, because radioactivity affects not only gonna not only is gonna probably kill you, but it's also gonna probably destroy your ability to procreate, or at the most, it's gonna produce birth defects of children. And that was seen, of course, in Iraq after the first Iraq War, because America used a lot of those armor-piercing, discarded, and sabers, or silver bullets, and the smoke that burnt from the things, and some of the stuff that got in the ground. It was shown that some of the ground was so contaminated that people could not plant anything or use it anymore, because it was just. So now we're seeing this this increase in this, and so by default, this is slowly bringing about the prophecy that we read here in Revelations again, where it said, a third part of the sea became blood or undrinkable, which we found also in some instances because of the mining, where water has gone into some of these the abandoned mines and other places, that and also runoff from farmland when they use a lot of nitrogen, which is what is happening down in Florida and causing that red algae, that it's killed off a lot of creatures. It's killed off a lot of creatures. So that with the radioactivity, runoff from man-made fertilizer. Then when you read about the great star Wormwood falling into the water, it was burning like a lamp, and it caused a third part of the fell on the third part of waters, and they became bitter, and many men died. You so what some people are actually looking for a actual star, that or asteroid or something that's gonna fall, and that could be so. That actually could be so, but a star sometimes could mean a heavenly messenger, right? It can be a messenger, and then because you find in Revelations that it talks about the angel over the bottomless pit, abiding, which is some people say it's Satan, some people say it's an actual uh, fallen angel that is called Abaddon, that is over the pit. He presides over the pit. I say myself that it's probably Satan, because the Bible said that Satan was cast out of the heaven, and he fell to the ground and woe into the inhabitants of the world. We know he comes to kill them and story. In either way, wormwood could be the same thing. It could be a a spiritual entity that is going about throughout the whole world and causing people to create these technologies and to do these certain industries that is going to make the waters bitter, just like the Flint situation. We know that they use lead pipes. Where do you get lead from? You get it from the ground. You get it from these mines. You get it from the rocks. You get mountains. They have a lot of time. They had to go into these mountains and blast them and level and get the rocks and crush them. So I'm just trying to show you this is a different way that you can look at the prophecy and see that it's happening right now, instead of waiting for a gigantic asteroid to fall into the ocean and pollute everything. It's happening now. It's happening now. This stuff is being polluted now. Look at here. Let's keep reading this article. They said back in 2011 they made that decision. They probably had made it before, but definitely they they were speeding it up. They said 7 power stations still in operation today are due to close by 2022, which is what, 2 years from now. With their closure comes a great challenge: finding a permanent nuclear graveyard by the government's 2031 deadline. Meaning by 2031 they gotta do something, because once you take those rods out of the water and stuff, you gotta get them somewhere, and when they bury them, whatever they gotta bury him deep because this stuff is still hot. It's still hot, right? Said Germany's Minister of Economic Affairs and Energy says it aims to find a final repository for highly radioactive waste, which offers the best possible safety security for a period of 1 million years. The country was a blank map of potential sites, it added. Currently, high level radioactive waste is stored in temporary facilities, usually near the power plant it comes from. And I'm looking right now at a place of where all their it's showing a map of where their sites was. But these facilities are only designed to hold the waste for a few decades. Said Shear, a chair of environmental and climate policy at the Technical University of Munich and part of the committee assisting the search for high-level radioactive waste. Now, this is just Germany. What if America tomorrow decided that they would do that, which I don't think that they would? So, as the name suggests, high-level radioactive waste is the most lethal of its kind. It includes the spent fuel rods from nuclear power plants. If you open a canister with these fuel rods in it, it would more or less you would more or less instantly die. So the canisters, which are specially built, are holding these things that still are warm, still spewing out radioactive waste. These rods are so incredibly hot, it's very hard to transport them safely, says Sears. So for now, they're being stored in containers where they can first cool down over several decades, she added. There are dozens of temporary sites dotted across Germany. The search is now on for a permanent home at least 1 kilometer underground. 1 kilometer underground. The location will need to be geological very, very stable. It can't have earthquakes. It can't have any signs of water flow. It can't be very porous rock. Finland, which has 4 nuclear power plants and plans to build more in the future, is a world leader in this field. Work is well underway on its own final suppository for high-level waste buried deep in granite bedrock. Germany's problem is it doesn't have a whole lot of granite, says Shears. Instead, it has to work with the ground it's got, burying the waste in things like rock salt, clay rock, and sisterite granite. And it's just showing here. Uh, and yeah, it's just showing more stuff. This is crazy, man. This is crazy. And they had to have known the stuff when they came up with this. They had to know, but because this uh, this star, which I'm gonna interpret this star as a spirit, uh, because we know that bitterness is uh, poisons everything. I think that you can interpret this the Great Mountain. I think you can interpret it. This star at Wormwood. I want to believe that you can interpret it as the demonic spirit that is resting, that's in charge of all this, of contaminating the earth. Now there could be a great asteroid or something that comes in and crashes, but I believe that Yah is gradually allowing this to happen. He's allowing this to happen, remember, because of mankind rebellion against him, and also the treatment of his people all across the world, wherever we've been at. Think about what Germany did in Namibia when it was one of its colonies. They said that Germany probably killed up to what was to 1 million Namibians in the Namibian desert. They don't talk about that at all. That was in the forms of like concentration kind of camps or whatever. Let's not forget what Germany was part of uh, colonization of South, of not just Namibia, but other South African countries also their treatment. And now look what's happening. Uh, we as people of Yah, we got to really start understanding that this stuff is happening around us right now. That prophecy is being fulfilled. It's not going okay like this. The sun scorching me. Was that gonna be a one-time thing? No, it's gonna be over a period of time, and we see that happening right now. We see the great heat wave in Australia, and along with the fires, we see these unusually warm winters that we're having. They're calling it global warming because of the interference of man. That could be, but that interference is being caused by demonic entities. That's why I'm saying that I believe that the great star that fell from heaven into the waters, Wormwood, is actually a a spirit, is Satan himself, the great dragon that comes to kill, steal, and destroy, and has told these people because it was excuse me, I was looking at a news report a couple of years ago talking about one of the reasons why they had the problems with the so-called Somali pirates, right? You remember the famous movie that they made a couple of years ago about Captain Phillips or whatever, with that Hollywood movie star. I can't remember his name, but as I started studying it more and more, what came out was because Somalia is trying to rebuild itself after so many years of civil war. They're trying to get over the introduction of Al Shabaab and all this other stuff that's going on in this country, and it was pretty much considered to be a no-go zone for Westerners or whatever, and pretty lawless. What was happening was because they didn't really have a central government. Supposedly said all they just had these cruise ships that just wanted to pass through the waters and get to their destinations or whatever, and they were being harassed by Somali pirates and held hostage for them to try to take mess with international supposedly in international waters. But what an alternative report came out was that uh, at at first what had happened was that whatever government that Somalia had been noticing that Western nations were taking advantage of it being a pretty much governless country, and they were coming, and not only were they fishing in, not only them, but Asian nations were coming in and fishing in their waters, but that they also were coming, some European countries were coming and dumping their radioactive waste into their part, the waters of Somalia, which is the Indian Ocean, without their permission, and that they were going in and they were telling them to stop. And the only way that they could get their attention was to go and hold hostage some of these ships and say, pay us this money. And that's why a lot of the ships and stuff, they was telling people, don't bother the pirates, like trying to kill them, give them the money. It was almost like a payoff that, yeah, we're willing to do this because we want to continue to pass through your waters and probably dump our waste and get your fish or whatever, and nothing was being said. But because of the thing with the Captain Phillips, I think people had to really look and see what was going on. And now we also find out that there's large amounts of oil off the coast of Somalia also. So all of this plays into that. And let's not forget what happened with the oil spill that happened in the Gulf of Mexico. Now they said that with the oil that's in the Gulf of Mexico, one of the reasons that some people was not concerned, because they said even before they had the great oil spill that happened in the Gulf of Mexico with that oil, that offshore oil rig I forgot the name of it now. Blowing up. They said that it was oil already on the bottom of the floor of the Gulf of Mexico because of all the drilling and stuff that they had already been doing that they really hadn't cleaned up. So, like I said, this stuff is happening now. We waiting for a big asteroid to fall in the water, and slowly but surely we'll get into the point where water is going to become a precious commodity because all the water is going to be totally now. Look what happened in Newark. Newark doesn't need no star wormwood to fall in the water. Its water is already contaminated. Flint doesn't need it. Its water is already contaminated. Detroit River doesn't need it. Its water is already contaminated. So you understand, see how we gotta ask y'all to give us understanding because we might be waiting for this to happen and it's already happened. And we'll be wondering, man, man, water's gone. We was waiting for a big mountain or whatever. And so we got to pray. We gotta fast. We gotta ask the Most High Yah to open up our understanding. We also got to ask the Most High Yah to for His kingdom to come and His will to be done on earth as it is in heaven. We got also got to ask the Most High Yah because we know that some of the plagues that Yah was going to send in the end were going to be all over the world, and that some of them would appear to be like the some of the um disasters that he sent on Egypt or Mizraim, but it's gonna be worldwide. But it was gonna be more than just those 10. It was gonna be others also, or something similar. So this is my take on it. There's probably many more articles I can find about many more other cities where this is happening. I just wanted to bring this to your attention tonight to show you that, yeah, water is gonna become such a precious commodity that, and I'm pretty sure you probably can find some places and on the stock market where water futures or whatever is being traded, and people probably like water, what? Because they understand that this prophecy is happening right now. That they are, and it's like everything else, even if they themselves are doing it, they still bringing the prophecy. So they can say, well, y'all ain't causing the prophecy, we causing the prophecy. Well, if he wrote about it before you did it, he's still in control. It's happening, right? So that's our lesson tonight. I want you to share this video. I want you to like it. I want you to leave a comment, and I want you to subscribe. I want you also to continue to pray for our people, the 12 tribes, all scattered and dispersed. That this year of 2020 will be a year that we start coming together and gathering. And I'm not talking about with the feast and all that kind of stuff, because I'm not really, saying for myself that I'm engaging in that, because I believe, like, you know what many of us believe, that those feasts were not meant to be done outside of the land, but that we need to be concerned with what the disciples were concerned with after Yeshua or Jesus uh, had left in the ascension. He said they gave themselves to prayer and the ministry of the word. I think that's what we need to be doing as believers in Yeshua, and as the 12 tribes. We need to give ourselves to prayer, fasting, and the ministry of the word, understanding what this word means. Now, if you want to do the fast as the feast as a commemoration, or whatever, I have no problem with that. I might not I might even myself maybe might one time this year, maybe go to one of them, not as an obligation, but just to fellowship with other people. I'll go for the fellowship, but I'm not going to re-replicate. If I'm, not doing these Christmas and Easter and all this other kind of stuff because it's pagan or whatever as a religious rite. Yeshua, at least Yeshua is the fulfillment of the feast. So if our goal is for the fellowship, it's not because I got to do this to seal my salvation. My salvation is sealed in Yeshua. He is the Passover lamb. He is the Yom Kippur. He is the scapegoat. He is all of that. So, but still, I believe 2020 we need to get together for the ministry, for the ministry, for prayer and the ministry of the word, so we can understand this word more. Just like y'all showed me this right here, I'm sure there's other people that can have even more deeper revelation than what I got. So with that, I'm gonna say peace and have a and I know that this is not the actual new year, but for the purposes of us being in the land of our captivity and being under their system in the Gregorian system, I would say that I would hope that this forthcoming time will, that Yah will start bringing His people together. Be blessed.